Hey everyone, welcome back to Sinister Owl. Today, we're diving into some eerie, true Reddit camping stories that are guaranteed to send chills down your spine. You guys have been loving these true Reddit stories, so we're bringing you more of the spooky, unsettling, and downright mysterious ones that keep you coming back for more. These are perfect for studying, relaxing, or just vibing with a good scary story. And before we jump in, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and help us get closer to our goal of 500 subscribers. All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's get into these eerie Reddit stories. My girlfriend at the time and I went camping 5 hours away from home for her birthday, our anniversary. We made the trip the day after a big storm passed through. We left town early and got there in the early afternoon. The guy at the entrance to the campgrounds mentioned there was no one else staying there that weekend. We were like, oh, this is going to be sick. First, we drove down these long pathways to our designated area. As you got closer to it, the road narrowed, so basically, you had to back out to get out. We unloaded the car, got the tent set up, and decided to go walk around the woods. It was dead silent, but it was still bright out. So we just took in all the nature we could and walked a few miles away. We reached this point in the woods where there were some weird-looking white cabins. They were very uniform, all built the exact same way. Like, I guess they were a part of the camping grounds, but they seemed way out of the way, and there was no sign of life. It felt eerie to be at, like we shouldn't be there. So we turned around and walked back. We took a breather in the tent, then tried to start a fire in the fire pit. Unfortunately, neither of us had ever been camping before and had no idea how to start a fire. We had bought some of those self-lighting logs from Walmart and some lighter fluid, but everything else around us was soaked to the bone from the rain that had passed through the day before. We knew we needed kindling of some sort, but any dry sticks or leaves was far and few between. Eventually, we got a small fire going and ate hot dogs and marshmallows and spent some time look at the stars. Then we noticed just how dark it was out there. My girlfriend was easily spooked and was like, "Can we get into the tent now?" So we put the fire out and crawled into the tent. We were talking to each other, but I could tell she was tense. Suddenly, she put her hand over my mouth and was like, "Shh, do you hear that?" Before I could respond, we heard footsteps, like heavy footsteps. It sounded like a group of people walking. I whispered to her, "It's probably just animals or something." Then we heard mumbling, like low mumbling. We couldn't make out words, but it didn't sound like a sound an animal could make. It sounded like words, but hushed and non-elaborated. We sat in silence, staring at each other in the dark for what felt like forever. The mumbling got louder, as did the footsteps, until it sounded like it was right outside of our tent. We both froze. I don't think either of us were breathing. And then, silence. We waited and waited and waited. I'm still not sure how much time passed. Eventually, my girlfriend said, "We have to get to your car." The adrenaline was pumping, so I peeked out of the tent into the darkness and told her to stay behind me. Then we ran to the car. I locked the doors and she was like, "What the was that? We can't stay here. No one is out here but us. What was that?" I kept looking around for any signs of life, but we were seemingly alone. I looked at her and was like, "Okay, I'm gonna grab our stuff. You stay in the car." We only had our ice chest and our tent out. I hopped out and ran, grabbed our ice chest, tossed it into the back seat. As I turned around to go get the tent, I started hearing footsteps closing in again. In a moment of pure terror, I yanked the tent out of the ground, wrapped the tarp around it, and slung it over my shoulder like some panicked Santa Claus, and shoved it into the trunk. I didn't say anything when I got in the car, except, "Do we have everything in here?" My girlfriend said yes, and I floored it in reverse out of our camping area. And we came to a fork in the road that went in like 6 different directions. I asked my girlfriend if she remembered which path we came down to get in here, and she told me she didn't know. We chose a random one and ended up in a different camping spot. I cursed under my breath and slammed it into reverse again. Then I noticed, from the angle we had exited from, I could see the main path back to the gate, thanks to a small sign behind an overgrown bush. As we hightailed it out of there, I noticed there was a single, small green light out in the woods to our right, near where our designated spot was. We drove the entire 5 hours back to our hometown and fell asleep on my girlfriend's parents' couch at around 4 a.m. We never talked about the trip ever again, and I haven't had any desire to camp since. Back in 2021, my husband and I were camping in Wyoming at the Boysen Reservoir. We got really lucky and were able to book a beach front site directly leading to the water, but the downside was that it was very, very far away from the other campsites. We were essentially isolated from everyone else. At the time though, it sounded like a dream come true. The thing about Wyoming is that it's so desolate, to the point where it's pitch black and eerily dead silent once the sun is gone. We set up our camp, enjoyed our fire, but shortly after that, a random SUV with blacked out windows came driving down our road and into our sight. They drove towards us. My husband tried to wave to them in case they were lost and needed help, but instead, they ignored us and drove down to the beach, stayed there for 5 minutes, turned around, and went back up the way they came. We immediately got a bad vibe. My husband told me to throw everything in the car, and he kept shining a flashlight towards the beach because we had a feeling they dropped someone off to watch us. After we packed up, we got in the car and hauled ass. The same car drove back into our campsite, and when they saw us leaving, they actually started chasing us. Mind you, the roads in Wyoming are bumpy and unkept when you're in the wilderness. On top of that, enormous wildlife that wanders in and out of the streets. My husband said, "I have to go fast. Are you okay with that?" And I said, "Just go and get us out of here." We were easily going 80 miles per hour down these windy roads, and even through a canyon. They were on our tail for about 10 minutes until we lost them after passing through the canyon. Most terrifying experience of our lives. We think about it to this day and wonder what could have happened if we didn't listen to our gut at that moment. This past weekend, me and my partner decided to go to our usual camping spot. It's very low-key, never usually anyone up this mountain besides 1 or 2 people at a time. And even at that time, they're miles away from your campground. It's not a well-known spot. This past weekend, just like every year, we brought my parents' little elderly dog, set up camp, ate some food and drank some beer around the campsite. When we arrived prior to this, we scoped out the area to see how busy it was. There was absolutely nobody in sight. The entire mountain campgrounds were entirely empty. We used to have one hunter or fisher in the area at least. We've never not seen at least one person the entire trip. So we sat around the fire, completely relaxed with my little dog nearby. When we decide to get into bed, my usually very complacent, placid pup refuses to settle inside the tent. It's pretty hot this time of year, so we had the tent unzipped, with just the mesh covering the opening to let some breeze in. But my pup was looking through the mesh and sniffing, zoning in on something entirely. We decide to get up and check out the camp for whatever he's looking at. We don't see anything, so we decide to sit by the fire to fire us out when my sleepy pup unsettles suddenly with his hackles straight up on end, growling a deep growl into one direction of the woods. We decided to grab the hunting knife and axe and listen. He's snarling and barking vigorously, which took us by surprise because he's been completely comfortable every other year. After a few hours of him acting on high alert, we decide to flip the truck lights on to illuminate our camp as we're surrounded by darkness. We were listening intently, trying to figure out what he's seeing or hearing. After a few minutes, he lays down and alarms us again. A few minutes later, startling us to the point we make a run for the truck by how aggressively my dog is wanting something. We wait hearts pounding inside the truck, trying to see what's out there. After 30 minutes, we assume whatever it is has passed on. After we reposition ourselves in front of the fire again, my dog's hackles are up, and we hear the loudest tree branch snap a mere 10 feet away from us in the pitch-black wilderness. Again, we hop in the truck with the dog and decide we better leave, as earlier that night we were hearing wolves hunting for a few hours and their howls echoing through the woods. Our main concern was it being a cougar, as they're commonly seen in this area, and there had been a lot of attacks on unsuspecting victims. Our main thought was, something was stalking us for a long time without moving on. We told my partner's parents that we decided it's better to be safe than sorry, and we were mocked extensively. But we were armed with very minimal weapons, not anything that would handle a mountain lion or a pack of wolves. We were called chicken shits the entire weekend and mocked over it. I also felt protective over my dog, as he's very small. Going back about a couple of decades or so, I was living in London and would make a hiking, camping trip every 6 or 8 weeks as a way to deal with living in the middle of the city. One time a friend asked to come along, so he and I went to the New Forest in the southwest of England. The New Forest isn't actually new at all, the same way New College of Oxford University is anything but new. It has some of the few areas of ancient forest left in the UK. We're walking around on all these well-managed pathways, and when it got to mid-afternoon, we thought, let's head off the tracks, get into the actual woodland, and then find a spot to camp. I take a compass bearing, and we turn off the path and head directly into the woods, making our way through the trees and ferns for around a mile, maybe. I had the most curious sensation go through me, stopped and turned to my buddy and said, listen. The forest had suddenly gone completely silent. No bird song, no sound at all, not even the leaves rustling in the breeze. I stood there for a moment, my hand on my buddy's shoulder, trying to figure out what was occurring. Eventually shrugged and decided whatever it was would just have to be. The sensation that went there me wasn't threatening, but more curious, a feeling of curiosity. About 200 or 300 yards further, we found an ideal spot for camp. A large clearing, broadly circular in shape, plenty of space to set up camp. Also a small fire. It was spring in the UK, so safe to do. We put our tents together, then I dig a fire pit while my pal starts gathering wood. There are even some logs we can use for seats too, and pretty soon, we have a really comfortable setup. Night draws in. The fire's going nicely. We get dinner down us, and out comes a bottle of Black Label. We're drinking and sharing stories, and have completely forgotten anything about that curious feeling from earlier. Time goes on, and we're getting tired, so call it a night. We stomp out the fire, pee on it, and pour plenty of water on it. Then, throw a load of soil on it, and kick it around to make sure it's out. Then, say goodnight. And we both go into our tents and get our heads down. It usually takes me a while to get to sleep the first couple of days camping, and maybe it was the whiskey, but I was out like a light the instant my head was down. The first time I woke up, I could hear yelling, a man's voice from far away, far beyond the direction of my buddy's tent. I couldn't make out any words, the voice coming from far away, but I could tell from the tone that it wasn't distress. I don't know why I dismiss it as interesting, but nothing to worry about. But that's what I did, and I went right back to sleep. The second time I woke up, I could see a ball of bright white light shining through the material of my tent. It was slightly larger than a tennis ball, and in my estimation about 20 yards away, on the opposite side of the clearing, and it traveled in a perfect line, in a perfectly flat, linear direction, from left to right. It wasn't bobbing up and down like a torch being carried. It moved in a flat line, gliding. Again, that curious feeling went through me, and as I knew it was there, I sensed that it knew I was there. I reached for the zip of my tent to open it and take a look when a voice in my head said, "Don't look." It was the same experience as when you're a child and an adult warns you, "Don't touch something dangerous," not angry or scary, but a very clear warning to not do something. My hand froze, fingers on the zipper, and I'm looking at the ball of light shining through the tent lining. That feeling of curiosity in me. "Go back to sleep," said the voice in my head. Again, not scary, but very much an instruction. I immediately put my head back down, and sleep literally pulled me in. It wasn't me falling asleep, so much as sleep reaching for me and pulling me in. When I opened my eyes, it's daylight, so I open the zipper of my tent, and the campsite is as we left it. Nothing changed, nothing moved. I felt like I'd had the best night's sleep ever. I still do after all these years. Absolutely daisy. Fresh, bright, alert, fully rested and energized. The zip on my buddy's tent opens, and his head sticks out, a big grin on his face. "Morning," he calls out. "Good morning," I reply. "How are you feeling?" "Great," he says, a big smile on his face. "Brilliant, in fact. I had an awesome night's sleep." "Me too, man," I said. "We went through a bottle of whiskey last night, and I don't feel hungover in the slightest." "Same here," he says with a big smile. "I feel perfectly fine. I think we got away with it. Haha." We clamber out of our tents and get some water boiling to start a morning brew going, have some breakfast. And as we're breaking down camp, I ask him, "Did you see or hear anything weird during the night?" "Nope, I slept right through." Out the moment my head hit the pillow. "Really? There was something weird going on last night, mate," I tell him. "I could hear someone yelling out in the woods." "Wait, now you mention it." My buddy looked at me. "Yeah, I did hear someone shouting something. It was coming from that direction." He waved in the direction behind my tent. "I heard it coming from that direction," I said, and pointed beyond his tent. "Could you make out any words?" He shook his head and carried on taking down his tent. I thought to ask if he'd seen anything during the night, but decided not to. Seeing bright lights floating in the woods at night and hearing voices in your head isn't exactly sane sounding, so I let it go. We set off, and basically that was that. We grabbed lunch at a pub, then back to the car and drove back to London. I'm in my 50s now, and I've never experienced anything like that before or since, and it's still probably the best night's rest I've ever had.